Hey everyone, this is Louis7 and today I have a LOTRO news video on update 30.3.2, which is releasing tomorrow, Wednesday, October 27th with the usual 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Time maintenance. So the big things in this patch include Brawler buffs and other changes, and some continued work on the legendary items revamp as we get closer to Gundabad. While otherwise the patch is pretty short, there are a few other things of note that we'll get to, but first off, let's go ahead and start with the class changes. And the bulk of the things here is going to be on the Brawler. First of all, Brawler's taunts were not working before apparently, so now they properly work, and when you taunt an enemy on the Brawler, just like with every other class, it will move you to the top of the threat list when used, in addition to just forcing the enemy to attack you for a brief duration. Also, the thing of interest that everybody is probably looking forward to is the damage buff that Brawlers are getting. It says in the patch notes that damage has been significantly increased. What this actually means in game, we will have to wait and see, but they say they are going to continue to monitor the DPS output for the Brawlers. Next up for the Brawlers is the toggle skills for aggressive posture and defensive posture, the two stance type skills they can get in each the blue and red line. Those used to be cancelled when the Brawlers were stunned, and that no longer will be the case after this patch, so they will maintain, which is going to be a nice quality of life change. Otherwise, we have pretty minor changes for the Brawler actually. There was an issue where some of the Brawler set pieces required you to actually be a Baroning class in order to equip. There's a lot of stuff with the Baroning tied to the Brawler in the beta. So it looks like they might still be cleaning some of that stuff up, and the set armor pieces requiring Baroning is the one thing in this patch. Also, there are a lot of particle effects going around the Brawler that they're supposed to indicate the metal status for Brawlers, but they were happening out of combat, and after this patch they will no longer display out of combat and only display in combat to again indicate how much metal you have. Personally, in my gameplay experience with the Brawler, I have not noticed this all that much, so it's something I will be sure to pay attention to so I can have a little bit better comments on it in the future. But moving on, there's one other class that got an adjustment, and is the Champion. Now, Champion is a class I don't play too much, but personally I really like this change. First of all, the big change with Rend, that is the skill that is getting changed. It now has an initial damage pulse for the damage over time effect. When you use the skill, you'll get some instant damage from that. And the idea sounds like it's to make Rend more useful when reapplied early, to continue the bleed and even tier it up. Also, the note on tiering Rend up, tiers 4 and 5 of Rend now upgrade correctly. I don't know what the issue was there before, but now tiers 4 and 5 will upgrade correctly with Rend. Moving on, we have a few changes to the legendary item system, and especially with legendary items loot. Before we get into this, I do want to point out that I have a community post on my channel that I will link in the comments of this video for you to ask your questions on the LI system that I plan to answer at least as best as I can in an upcoming video, continuing with my 2 intro guides that I did before. So if you have any questions on how the new LI system works that I have not covered before, please do comment in that so I can answer it more directly. Also, one more bit of personal shout out to my own content that I want to share related to legendary items is this evening I actually plan to stream LOTRO. And I'm going to be doing a probably shorter stream, partially because of this update and taking all my time doing this news video. But what I'm going to do is get new legendary items right from the start, as basically a new player would, doing Walls of Moria, going through that content. I have a character that needs to do that, and it's a perfect opportunity to learn how the system works, actually doing that and how it functions, so I can also incorporate that potentially into a video in the future. So did just want to mention those couple of things, but let's get back to the patch notes with LIs. So first off, the legendary item drops from instances. You can now only get drops when playing the instance in your character's level range. So to me, this sounds really scary, but it has the level ranges listed here. It's the standard ones, which actually traceries coincide with: 50 to 85, 86 to 100, 101 to 105, 106 to 115, 116 to 120, and finally 121 to 130. And in Gundabad, it will be 130 to 140, notably not 131 to 140 according to these patch notes. Now, this is really concerning to me because that means, for example, if you are a level 105 character and you run an instance at level 106, that means, according to these patch notes, that you will not get legendary items loot. And to me, that really sucks, because there are definitely times when you might not be in one of these range categories for your character, level range categories, that is, for your character running group content, and then you just won't get loot. Another example I have is maybe you are level like 115 and want to run run some instances with a level 120 friend and y'all decide to do an instance that is like in the middle of that 116, 117, well then the 115 player would not get any new LI loot. Or if you decide to do it at level 115 so that the 115 player could get loot, now the level 120 player who's higher level won't get loot. So one of my initial things, like my reaction to this, is I get the idea of it that they don't want you running content that is not your character's level to get new LI loot. But to me, I don't know if this is actually a good solution. The first thing I would like to see is a much wider level range and overlapping levels between these different level range categories, such as 101 to 115, then 106 to 120, and then you'd have 116 to 130, kind of etc. going on from there, just so there's a little bit of overlap for people who want to run group content with a group that's not all the same level players. Also, this implementation can make the new LI system less alt-friendly, because one thing you can do right now with the LI system is on a high level character run a lower level instance and get the lower level loot. It's still lower level, but you can at least funnel it to an alt. So if you're wanting to farm stuff for your lower level alt on your high level character, it sounds like you will not be able to do that. So I will wait to see how this actually plays out in game, but currently I would really hope for a softening of these level ranges some. Moving on, there's also a change for legendary item drops from level 101 and above, not level 100 and below notably. And when you run group content in those level ranges above 101, you can only get the teal and gold or incomparable and legendary item drops when playing at the next level cap or higher. So the example it gives in the patch notes is a level 110 character must be running a 115 to 119 instance to get teal and gold drops, and the other example they have is a level 130 character must run a 130 to 139 difficulty instance. Currently, a strategy some players use is to run content below their level to get gold rewards that count for their level. So this change effectively neuters that, and instead it will make players who are at certain level caps or in certain ranges want to run the content for that level cap. So for example, level 115 character on Anor, while it's a small server, this is a great example. You might run 106 content right now and get gold traceries. So instead of running content 9 levels below you at 106, you instead will now want to run content at your level at 115, which makes more sense, and I see why Standing Stone Games made this change. For a broader audience and broader players on the regular servers that are at the level cap at 130, now you will have to run the instances at 130. To me, this is a good change because it does make sense that you should be running content more geared towards your level, and if you're at the level cap, you should be running level cap content, so I am a fan of this change. Again, just to point out, this only applies to instance rewards and teal and gold traceries specifically. Teal and gold loot, rather. I believe this also includes enhancement runes. Alright, next up we have reforging of legendary items, the new legendary items that will now update the minimum usage level of the LI. So right now the minimum usage level I believe is like 45 or something. It could even be 1 for all I know, but anyway, the point is reforging your LI will update the minimum level usage, and while in regular gameplay this has absolutely no impact on how the LIs actually perform, there are 2 places specifically where there were scaling issues with the implementation of these new LIs, and that was in Epic Battles and the Etten Wars. In Epic Battles, you were basically super nerfed and very weak, your new LI was at least, and I'm not sure the exact issue in Etten Wars, but the point is this change will fix both of those places, Epic Battles and Etten Wars, so you have more proper scaling in those systems. And we have one final note on the new LIs, and that is actually with old LI loot. Starlit crystals, which are not used in the new system, they were a part of the old system, they can now be disenchanted into enhancement runes to improve the traceries and new legendary items. Notably, according to the patch notes at least, this does not include giving you traceries, you only get enhancement runes which could be used in the new system. If this functions like the appraisal process, there is no point in waiting for level 131 to 140, or essentially waiting for Gundabad to actually disenchant these, because in the appraisal process, for example, if you did wait for Gundabad, you'd still get the same loot that you get at 130 now, as a prevention from people just like waiting to appraise their stuff for Gundabad. And the point here is, if it functions the same, it does not say in the patch notes, and I haven't seen anything from a developer, if it does function the same way, then there's no point in waiting to do this. Otherwise, if you have the inventory space and don't mind waiting, it could be worth waiting to see, but I kind of doubt that it will provide anything beneficial waiting, but It is always possible, I suppose. Alright, next up we do have one more items changed, and some people might have noticed if you slotted essences into a bind to account piece of gear, especially like at the level cap at 130, that would bind the gear to your character. This should no longer happen, but I will point out in the patch notes this does not say if it retroactively fixes the now bound to character gear that used to be bound to account, and if it will, retroactively fix it to be back to bound to account again. I guess we'll have to wait to see, or see if there's a developer post on that. Moving on, there is actually a significant nerf to Warg pins. It doesn't actually say in the patch notes if it's a nerf or a buff, but Warg pins XP and gold awards are now more commensurate with their runtime and difficulty is the line of notes there. So my interpretation of this is Warg pins is going to be nerfed and give less XP and less gold because you don't really have to spend all that much time there, and it's pretty easy to do. That is how people essentially power level in LOTRO because it's so fast and easy and gives the same XP as normal instance quests. We'll have to see if this actually is a nerf, but again, I suspect that is what it means because I really doubt they buffed XP and gold in Warg pins. Moving on, there's one last change to the servers, and this is the same change that I believe Arkenstone and Landreval got last patch. So once again, the patch notes are kind of vague. It just says they made server configuration change that aims to address a possible issue with game performance, and they would appreciate any feedback with this change. Now, one thing that is not clear to me, it says server configuration changes, but also game performance can mean anything from your FPS and how smooth the gameplay is with that, how high your FPS is. Maybe they made a change that somehow affects that, or server lag. Server lag, however, is the most likely thing that they are addressing here. It's the one that makes most sense with a server configuration change, but again, it is not actually clear. But what I suspect is you should hopefully be getting a little bit less lag in the game. I personally did notice Arkenstone was less laggy after we had this change last week for that server, but then it got super laggy again. I believe it was over the weekend that it just got extremely laggy and was really bad. So I'm not entirely sure, but still that is a change that is coming to the game in this patch. And alright, that brings us to the end of this LOTRO news video. Again, the patch is coming tomorrow, Wednesday, October 27th, and I am planning to stream later today, as I mentioned, and have that community post on the LIs if you're interested in checking those out. But otherwise, that is all I have for this video, so I hope you all enjoyed it and learned something useful with everything coming. And if you did, please consider liking and subscribing for more, or becoming a channel member to support the content. And thanks for watching, everyone.